Greenland was never supposed to matter. No massive population, no industrial cities, no financial hubs shaping global markets. For most of modern history, Greenland existed at the edge of maps and at the edge of attention, a frozen landmass known more for isolation than influence. Yet today, Greenland sits quietly at the center of one of the most complex strategic equations of the 21st century. Not because it changed, but because the world around it did. Geopolitics does not evolve through announcements. It evolves through shifts in access. And access is exactly what Greenland represents. As Arctic ice retreats, geography reasserts itself. Routes once locked behind ice become navigable. Distances shrink. And what once looked remote begins to look central. Greenland's importance is not ideological. It is logistical. It sits between continents, between oceans, between old assumptions and new realities. From a strategic standpoint, Greenland's not land, IT position airspace control, satellite trajectories, subsea data cables, early warning systems, maritime corridor. These are the currencies of modern power. But unlike historical flashpoints, Greenland is not contested through visible conflict. There are no dramatic confrontations, no public ultimatums. Instead, there is attention, infrastructure proposals, scientific research initiatives, investment, discussions framed as development, security conversations framed as cooperation. This is how modern power moves quietly, incrementally, legally. Greenland's political status complicates everything. It is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. Not a colony, not a fully independent state, and not a passive actor. This layered governance structure creates friction and protection. Every external interest must navigate Greenlandic institutions, Danish authority, and European frameworks. Decisions take longer, processes are slower. But slowness is not weakness. In strategic environments, slowness can be insulation. For Europe, Greenland is not an opportunity to dominate. It is a responsibility to manage. Europe's primary fear in the Arctic is not competition, it is imbalance. Rapid militarization would destabilize the region. Neglect would leave strategic vacuums. Europe's approach reflects its broader philosophy of power, influence through regulation, stability through institutions, presence without overt dominance. This contrasts sharply with historical imperial models. Empires once expanded by controlling territory. Modern power expands by shaping systems. Shipping rules, environmental standards, infrastructure governance, data and communications oversight. Greenland sits at the intersection of all four, but attention brings pressure. Economic development is necessary for Greenland's future. Infrastructure must improve, employment opportunities must expand. Yet, development in the Arctic is never neutral. A port is never just a port. An airstrip is never just an airstrip. A fiber optic cable is never just a cable. Every asset has strategic dual-use potential. Greenland's leaders understand this. Autonomy is not symbolic. It is operational. Too much external dependence risks loss of leverage. Too little engagement risks isolation. This is the paradox of small regions in a global system. They carry outsized importance with limited margin for error. Denmark's role adds another layer of complexity. As a NATO member, Denmark holds security obligations. As a sovereign authority, it carries defense responsibility. As a European state, it must align with EU strategic norms. Each decision is scrutinized by allies, by Greenland, and by external observers. Denmark must balance deterrence without escalation, engagement without dominance, protection without provocation. This balancing act defines modern Arctic governance. Climate change accelerates every variable. Melting ice is not just an environmental issue. It is a strategic accelerant. Shipping routes shorten transit times. Resource surveys gain feasibility. Arctic presence becomes normalized. What was once exceptional becomes routine. And routine activity is harder to regulate. Europe's concern is not who enters the Arctic, but how the Arctic changes as a result. Resource extraction introduces long-term consequences. Greenland holds rare earth elements critical to modern technology. Supply chains matter. Strategic autonomy matters. But extraction risks environmental damage and social disruption. Europe cannot afford to repeat extractive mistakes of the past. The Arctic is not peripheral. It is fragile and interconnected. Every miscalculation lingers longer in cold environments. Security considerations extend beyond military presence. Search and rescue capacity, environmental disaster response, cyber and satellite infrastructure protection. These are non-negotiable responsibilities in a busier Arctic. Europe prefers coordination over confrontation, frameworks over force, predictability over spectacle. But restraint requires presence, not dominance, presence. Scientific cooperation, Coast Guard patrols, multilateral agreements. This is how Europe projects power, quietly, persistently, legally. For Greenland, this approach offers stability, but also constraint. Development must be negotiated. Investment must be vetted. Strategic patience becomes policy. This is the burden of geography. Greenland did not choose its location, but its location now shapes global planning. Modern power does not announce itself with conquest. It arrives disguised as opportunity. The Arctic will not be defined by one decision. It will be shaped by thousands of small ones. Infrastructure approvals, environmental regulations, security frameworks, each choice compounds. Greenland's future is not about becoming powerful. It is about remaining autonomous under pressure. Europe's challenge is not to control Greenland. It is to ensure Greenland is never forced to choose sides. This is not the story of an empire rising. It is the story of responsibility expanding. And in the modern world, responsibility weighs more than power.